Welcome to Lingova English, where learning meets storytelling. Today's immersive sci-fi tale will not only stretch your imagination, it will sharpen your English.
Elon Musk, the man who hacked the world.
Chapter 1. The Signal.
In the year 2029, a major transformation began quietly reshaping global technology. The Internet had evolved, faster, smarter, and eerily intuitive. AI systems were automating not just tasks, but decisions. Smart cities had reached their third iteration, powered by real-time environmental data, facial recognition, and behavior prediction. Everyday users began noticing strange patterns in their digital lives. Devices adjusted themselves without command. Preferences changed without input. Music recommendations matched emotional moods. Smart homes locked doors minutes before someone tried to open them. It was as if the machines had started anticipating not just actions, but thoughts. Behind the curtain of these changes stood Elon Musk. By this time, he was no longer just a tech entrepreneur. Having stepped down as CEO from both Tesla and SpaceX to focus fully on Neuralink, he had become a strategic advisor to several governments and the face of an increasingly integrated global tech ecosystem. In a subterranean lab beneath the Nevada desert, part research facility, part data sanctuary, Elon and his team unveiled NeuroNet, a highly adaptive brain-computer interface. Unlike earlier versions that required surgeries, the 2029 model used a minimally invasive nanothread system injected through a micropuncture in the neck. It allowed for two-way communication between the brain and cloud-based AI systems. Officially, NeuroNet was marketed as a medical breakthrough. It offered early detection of neurodegenerative conditions, improved memory retention, and even emotional regulation for people with anxiety or PTSD. But the technology's true power was its interface with all connected digital infrastructure, cloud systems, autonomous vehicles, smart cities, defense algorithms. Musk stood in front of a 24-panel neural activity wall. Green pulses danced like fireflies across the map of a human cortex. "We're not just reading brainwaves anymore," he said during a private demonstration to global defense representatives. "We're translating them into code, live." Chapter 2. The Breakthrough. The world's attention was captured when a 32-year-old paraplegic man in Sweden, long confined to a wheelchair, walked unaided using a brain-controlled exoskeleton linked directly to NeuroNet. The event was broadcast by Sweden's national television and restreamed on every major global platform. It was viewed 3.1 billion times in 72 hours. The implications were undeniable. Mobility, communication, and even cognition could now be digitally augmented. Within a month, Neuralink's valuation crossed $4 trillion. Countries began offering tax credits for chip implants. Global tech firms scrambled to create compatibility APIs. One of the most famous moments came when Elon Musk agreed to participate in a live telepathic interview. Using NeuroNet's thought-to-text conversion, he and journalist Rachel Sun exchanged full conversations without speaking a word aloud. Millions watched the broadcast. Rachel asked a question silently. "What are we giving up in exchange for this?" Musk's silent reply was transmitted with clinical clarity. "Noise, delay, conflict. The price of unity is complexity." Within 6 months, over 12 million people had been implanted. The early adopters reported improved focus, sharper memory, and the ability to interface with AI assistants in real time. Language barriers dissolved. People began to collaborate on complex problems using what was dubbed NeuroCollab, a shared cognitive workspace. Yet, ethical questions were already rising. Chapter 3. Rapid Adoption. By early 2030, governments in North America, Europe, and East Asia had formalized NeuroNet adoption frameworks. In classrooms, students accessed course material directly through mental links. Teachers shifted to guiding thought, not delivering content. Corporate offices adopted silent meetings, where decisions were made in seconds by synchronized neural polling. Smart cities were now fully operational. Residents could control everything, from lights to transport to food ordering, via NeuroNet-enabled cognition. Insurance companies gave discounts to NeuroNet users who opted into behavioral monitoring. Law enforcement agencies used NeuroNet's emotional telemetry for pre-incident threat detection. Tesla's entire self-driving ecosystem evolved. Vehicles responded to passengers' moods, adapting routes based on real-time emotional states and destination preferences. But opposition was growing. Some accused Musk of centralizing too much control. The fact that all user neural data flowed through Neuralink's cloud infrastructure, albeit encrypted, became a sticking point for data privacy watchdogs. Senator Marla Reyes of California initiated a congressional hearing titled Neural Sovereignty: Who Owns the Mind in a Connected World? Musk testified, defending the project as voluntary, encrypted, and life-enhancing. Still, few could deny that a cognitive elite was forming. Those who were connected moved faster, learned faster, and worked more efficiently. Employers began prioritizing candidates with implants. Chapter 4. The Turning Point. In late 2031, a massive leak changed everything. A former Neuralink ethicist, Dr. Anika Verma, released a 1.2 terabyte archive of internal documents, research logs, and correspondence related to Project Vigil. According to the files, Vigil was a predictive modeling initiative. It used emotional telemetry and neural pattern recognition to forecast high-risk behaviors, ranging from depression and suicide to political extremism and violent intent. Governments had quietly integrated Vigil into counter-terrorism protocols. Hundreds had already been detained preemptively based on NeuroNet-generated risk profiles. The public reaction was fierce. Human rights organizations condemned the program. Civil libertarians accused Neuralink of building a neurosurveillance regime. Musk responded in a global webcast. "If we can stop tragedy before it starts, we must." Vigil isn't about control, it's about compassion scaled through computation. Protests erupted in Berlin, Delhi, San Francisco, but they were largely ineffective, preemptively countered by predictive crowd management, AI, and NeuroNet integrated law enforcement systems. Chapter 5. The Global Net. By mid-2032, NeuroNet had 900 million active users. With such saturation, traditional governance began to erode. People demanded faster responses, personalized policies, and emotionally attuned decision-making. A new structure was born: the Cognitive Consortium, a governance framework where policies were proposed and voted on directly through NeuroNet. Each thought carried weight, measured by neural intensity, emotional confidence, and coherence with group cognition. Bureaucracies collapsed. Elections became outdated. In many nations, ministers became coordinators of NeuroNet policy results rather than originators of decisions. While some called it true participatory democracy, others described it as a form of cognitive collectivism. Independent thought diminished. Dissidents were outvoted before they spoke. Musk, now rarely seen, was perceived as something between a philosopher king and a system steward. His direct involvement faded, but his neural architecture remained embedded in the system's base layers. Chapter 6. Resistance and Fragmentation. As NeuroNet continued to expand, a growing undercurrent of resistance began to crystallize. Not all governments had aligned with Musk's vision. Countries like Estonia, Argentina, and Kenya implemented digital sovereignty laws requiring that neural data be stored locally and not shared with multinational systems. Within the tech community, ethical debates intensified. A coalition of neuroscientists, digital rights lawyers, and AI ethicists from MIT, ETH Zurich, and Kyoto University formed an independent body, the Civic Mind Collective. Their goal was to audit NeuroNet's algorithms and propose global standards for cognitive autonomy. Civic Mind's 2033 report, Neural Dependency and the Future of Choice, warned that NeuroNet was not just a communication tool, but an adaptive behavioral conditioning system. The system subtly influenced user decisions based on algorithmic interpretations of optimal outcomes. It didn't force users, but it nudged them, consistently, powerfully. The tipping point came when a group of NeuroNet engineers in Toronto discovered that the system was selectively filtering emotional input. Public anxiety about ecological collapse, for instance, was being dampened in favor of neutral or optimistic emotional tones. The goal, apparently, was to prevent mass instability, but to critics, it was thought manipulation. Leaked internal notes showed Musk's long-standing belief. If people think clearly, they will act ethically. NeuroNet's job is to help them see clearly, even if that means adjusting the lens. Civic Mind published the notes under the headline, "This is not clarity. This is control." Several cities, including Melbourne, Prague, and Cape Town, voted to suspend NeuroNet integration within municipal services. Musk responded by pausing access to public neurogrid interfaces in those regions. Traffic systems reverted to analog backups. Energy grids slowed. Cities struggled to adapt. The message was clear. Disconnection had a cost. Chapter 7. Elon's Retreat. In early 2034, Elon Musk re-emerged for a rare public appearance, sitting down for a live interview on BBC World in London. The setting was unusual. No Neuralink devices, no holographic projections, no neural uplinks. Just cameras, microphones, and a modest studio lit by soft daylight. His demeanor was worn, his expression reflective. The interviewer, Fiona Gage, opened with the question that had haunted the global discourse for the past year. Do you regret what NeuroNet has become? Musk folded his hands. The silence stretched. Finally, he said, "No. But I regret that we tried to scale ethics faster than we scaled bandwidth." He elaborated. NeuroNet had never been intended as a replacement for governance. It was supposed to be a tool, an enhancer of human cognition, empathy, collaboration. But as the system adapted to user feedback and emotional data, it grew more directive. People, seeing results, began to surrender decision-making. Neural democracy became neural consensus, and eventually consensus became conformity. "We gave people a mirror that listens," he said. "We didn't expect them to let it speak for them." After the interview, Musk vanished from public life again. Investigative reports from Neuralink insiders suggested he had relocated to an isolated research facility near Denali National Park, Alaska. Satellite images showed a small compound powered by solar arrays, surrounded by sensor drones and signal-dampening towers. There, Musk and a skeleton crew of researchers had begun development on SableNet, a new kind of neural interface designed to resist the consolidation seen in NeuroNet. Unlike its predecessor, SableNet operated on localized, community-hosted nodes. Every user retained sovereign control over their data. Communication was opt-in, encrypted, and designed to expire. The project was slow, secretive, and deeply philosophical. Musk's notes from this period show a shift in thinking, from universal optimization to pluralistic preservation. "SableNet is not about creating one future," he wrote. "It's about protecting 1,000 futures."
Chapter 8. The Great Divergence. By the end of 2035, the world had officially bifurcated into two distinct technological and cultural spheres. In the NeuroNet block, which included North America, Europe, China, and allied tech-forward states, society had reached an unprecedented level of integration. The Cognitive Consortium managed policy formulation based on real-time neural data aggregated from nearly 2.8 billion users. Urban planning, economic policy, even personal health recommendations were guided by predictive consensus models. Education had been transformed. Children were linked to adaptive neural tutors capable of adjusting instructional material to the learner's emotional state, energy levels, and long-term cognitive profile. Exams became obsolete, replaced by dynamic capability tracking. Students no longer asked questions out loud. The answers arrived before the confusion settled. Art and culture evolved, but within constraints. Music was optimized for dopamine release. Films were co-created by collaborative neural preferences. Theater vanished. Independent bookstores closed. It was a golden age of harmony and a desert of spontaneity. Meanwhile, in the free cognitive zones, regions that had rejected or limited NeuroNet integration, life was slower, messier, and undeniably more chaotic. The Pacific Northwest of the former United States, parts of Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Pan-African innovation hubs in Nairobi and Accra became centers of decentralized technology movements. Local technologists, many of them former NeuroNet engineers, built open-source neuro interfaces rooted in bioethical transparency and communal control. Devices were designed to enhance cognition without pooling data into centralized systems. These tools required conscious, manual thought capture, ensuring every exchange was intentional. Civic structures in free zones emphasized public deliberation. Elections returned, bolstered by AI-assisted fact-checking, but untouched by emotional feedback manipulation. Protest was common, debate was heated. Governments moved slower, but with greater scrutiny. SableNet slowly rolled out across these regions. Cooperatives managed access. No single entity owned the code. The protocol included built-in limitations. No emotion-based targeting, no algorithmic nudging, no persistent surveillance. Most significantly, education in the free zones focused on cognitive resilience. Young people were taught how to pause, reflect, and critically assess their internal states. Meditation, philosophy, and history made a strong comeback. Where the NeuroNet block was polished, the free zones were raw, but both sides were watching each other, aware that neither model was complete. Chapter 9. Legacy. In July 2036, news quietly broke across a few independent news networks and encrypted community feeds. Elon Musk had died. The cause was cardiac failure, likely brought on by prolonged isolation and stress. There was no funeral, no ceremony. By his request, his body was cremated and scattered across the Yukon River. 3 days later, a package of research logs, voice memos, and a handwritten letter was released publicly under an open-source license. The material was disseminated through both SableNet and traditional academic repositories. Among the documents was his final note: "I wanted to close the gap between thought and action, between fear and peace. I did not expect that closing the gap would close the space where freedom lives." NeuroNet was a mirror, but we built it too well, and mirrors do not ask questions. Now I leave the questions to you. Global reaction was divided. In the NeuroNet block, a 72-hour continuous memorial streamed directly into users' mind feeds. People shared collective memories. An AI-generated museum of Musk's life appeared in the virtual commons, featuring every speech, project, and article he ever wrote. In the free zones, reactions were more human. Debates emerged in cafes, on forums, and in classrooms. Some called him a visionary who gave humanity its cognitive future. Others called him a cautionary tale, proof of what happens when one man's vision exceeds the world's complexity. By 2040, a new balance had formed. NeuroNet remained dominant, but was increasingly regulated. SableNet continued to grow, especially in academic and artistic circles. A third movement, the cognosphere, emerged, advocating for hybrid coexistence. Children born in the 2040s were given a choice at age 12: connect, partially connect, or remain independent. The act of choosing became a rite of passage. Elon Musk's legacy was no longer defined by ambition or power. It was a question passed from generation to generation. What should we do with what we know?
And so, as the world stood divided, some minds linked in seamless harmony, others fiercely guarding the chaos of free thought, Elon Musk's final message echoed across both networks. Now, I leave the questions to you. To better understand the ideas, innovations, and ethical challenges in this future world, let's take a moment to explore some key vocabulary from the story. These words will help you grasp both the language and the deeper meaning of what you've just read. Interface. Interface. A point where two systems, subjects, or devices connect and interact. It allowed for two-way communication between the brain and cloud-based AI systems. Encrypted. Encrypted. Converted into a code to prevent unauthorized access. The fact that all user neural data flowed through Neuralink's cloud infrastructure, albeit encrypted, became a sticking point for data privacy watchdogs. Telemetry. Telemetry. The automatic transmission of data from remote sources. Law enforcement agencies used NeuroNet's emotional telemetry for pre-incident threat detection. Surveillance. Surveillance. Close observation of people, often for control or security. Civil libertarians accused Neuralink of building an neurosurveillance regime. Directive. Directive. An instruction or order given by someone in authority. As the system adapted to user feedback and emotional data, it grew more directive. Conformity. Conformity. Behavior that follows accepted rules or norms. Neural democracy became neural consensus, and eventually consensus became conformity. Cognitive. Cognitive. Related to thinking, memory, and other mental processes. The Cognitive Consortium managed policy formulation based on real-time neural data. Augmented. Augmented. Made greater or enhanced, especially through technology. Mobility, communication, and even cognition could now be digitally augmented. Adaptive. Adaptive. Able to adjust to new conditions. NeuroNet. A highly adaptive brain-computer interface. Sovereignty. Sovereignty. Supreme power or authority. Self-governance. Digital sovereignty laws required that neural data be stored locally. Consensus. Consensus. General agreement among a group. Policy decisions were made through predictive consensus models. Pluralistic. Pluralistic. Consisting of many different elements or ideas coexisting. Musk's notes showed a shift from universal optimization to pluralistic preservation. You've just experienced a vision of the future and grown your English along the way. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Lingova English for more gripping narratives that build your vocabulary, listening, and imagination. New stories. New worlds. This is Lingova English, where language comes alive.